Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the January 22nd, 2024 Planning Board meeting. This meeting is audio and video recorded, and it's also on Zoom. And the Zoom call-in number is 312-626-6799 with the meeting number of 963-465-53909. In order of business tonight, we're going to take care of a couple items on general business, then we'll go to scheduled hearings, and then we'll go to the friendly 40B at the tail end, okay? So first item of general business would be for a 81P, an A&R for Oxford Drive. If I could go to Amy for this, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. They filed an 81P as part of Oxford Drive and Prospect Street. That was dated for November 2nd, 2023, and submitted on January 10th, 2024. They have created 3 new buildable lots. It's identified on the plan as lots 187, 188, and 189.
Okay.
They meet the requirements for the rural residential 1 zoning district.
Okay. I did have one question, and I believe it was the larger lot, 189. Is that curb cut coming off Oxford Drive? Or somebody's?
Per the 81P and our requirements, they don't need to show that at this time. It's just to show that they meet the requirements of the lot size.
Okay, I just, in case they had to go through DPW for that, for road entry, that's all.
They would.
For curb cut.
Yeah, so if anybody were to do anything on the lot to it and requested a driveway access and kind of permit, they would have to file a permit through DPW for that, then it would be developed there.
Okay.
And just from looking at the plan, I would assume that'd be on Oxford Drive. I know there's a piece that goes out to Prospect Street down at the intersection there, but there is a culvert right there too, so I don't think that'd be feasible, so.
Yeah, okay.
And Oxford Drive is a town accepted roadway.
Yep, okay. All right.
Make a motion to endorse the 81P plan for Oxford Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we see Chris on board too? Yep. Yep.
Yep.
Chris, do you want?
Then we need a roll call vote. If someone's online, we need a roll call vote.
Yeah, but we don't need, all right, so Chris, just,
All right, I got it.
we don't
We'll
need it.
vote again.
No, we
Correct?
don't need it.
We don't need it.
No.
You
Majority.
just need, you only need 3.
Yeah, so we'll do
Okay.
that. Hang
Okay.
tight, Chris. All right, our next item of business would be for a lot release for 36 Greystone Road. I know this came in front of us once before, but Amy, if you could give us a brief update again, please?
Thank you. I was reached out by a lawyer or owner or whatever that the planning board actually released Lot 8 back on June 29, 2015. However, that decision was never recorded with the registry, and you do need to record the original document. Since then, we have them in front of you is the Form G, which is a certificate of release, so that it can be official and be signed tonight if the board agrees to release the lot.
Okay,
Make a motion to release 36 Greystone.
in a second?
Second.
Roll call
All in
vote?
favor?
Roll call or not?
No, I'm in
Okay.
favor.
Okay, aye.
Aye,
Aye.
as long as there's 3 of us, so
Yeah.
Chris can get EP. Okay?
Makes sense.
Our next item of business would be for a public hearing for 7 PM, which was for 15 Liberty Way. I guess they're looking to be continued again, Amy? How close are they?
I haven't really heard from them. I would say February 5th would be okay.
I'll go February 5th, okay.
Make a motion to continue 15 Liberty Way to February 5th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next item of business would be for a public hearing, which would be for 25 Forge Parkway. If I could go to Amy, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to waive the reading.
Yep. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
My mistake. They're actually not, this is oh no, it is initial. My sorry, okay. So the applicant has provided a revised site plan. They currently were already in front of the planning board, putting on an addition with additional drainage and parking in the rear of the site back in the fall. They're here now to construct 25 additional parking spaces. Just want to note that they are providing Cape Cod berm. They submitted a landscaping plan. I know that Beta and the town engineer has reviewed the stormwater management plan for the project, and I would defer to both of them for any comments.
Okay. I guess I'll go to Mike with DPW. Mike, if you could
Sure. Thank you, Mr.
chime in,
Chairman.
please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did review the site plan modification here, and it's just for the additional parking lot out front. We just had a couple of minor comments. One, that was just looked like a discrepancy for an elevation on one of the details. There are two different elevations provided. I think one matched the stormwater, the modeling, so that just needs to be corrected. And then two other minor things. We just want to point out that typically the plans do call out HDP drainage pipe. The board typically requires reinforced concrete pipe for on-site drainage systems. And then the other comment just had to deal with what Amy mentioned also, the previously approved parking expansion of the rear calls out for asphalt berm around the perimeter, which matches the remainder of the existing site in that area, with the exception of the main driveway and which is granite curb. And this area ties into that area along with the section of curb along the front of the building. So we just wanted to point that out, that they have it called out as asphalt berm, but typically the
So
board's
we
looking
want to
for
keep it
granite.
granite, yep.
So those are the only items I had.
Okay, good, thank you. And Gary, good man, you're right there.
Yes, Greg, I'm here.
How are you?
I pretty much had the exact same comments as the town, as Mike did. They pretty much had our previous design or our previous comments to guide them in terms of the stormwater design, so it did a pretty good job. The only thing that I was requesting was, when you look at the evergreens that they were proposing in the landscape plan, I think I requested that they move them out to be able to maintain the site distance looking to the east back up onto Forge Parkway. Other than that, the only thing I will say is there's about a 9-foot cut to be able to get this driveway, this parking lot in, so the building will now become very visible from the street. That's about the biggest issue that I could see relative to this site development or this amendment.
Okay, good, thank you. I guess I'll go to is the applicant on? Yep. Okay, if, actually, you could just approach the table and introduce yourself, and then we'll circle back to you.
Thank you. My name is Brian Jones with Allen and Major Associates. We provided the civil engineering and land surveying and landscape architecture for the project. I am a registered professional engineer in the Commonwealth, and here representing the applicant and owner, TMC Holdings and Development. With me tonight is Tom Clark, one of the owners. And we did have a chance to go through all of those comments from both the town engineer and Beta, and we agree with all of them. We've actually made the changes already. I know they haven't been presented to the board, but certainly we would agree with them and we'll make those changes. And the one comment about HDPE pipe versus RCP, we had been granted a waiver for the previous site plan approval. We would ask for that again. And in this particular case, where we're using a subsurface chamber system, RCP connections are very difficult to make to those systems. So where the board supported that last time, we were asking for that again.
Just at the connection points, correct?
Well,
Which
all
we
of
have
the
done in the
piping.
past, yeah.
All of the piping.
Okay.
One other comment that Gary had mentioned about the visibility of the site, we think that's a positive. The building is very attractive if you've entered the site, the brick and the curves. So certainly making it more visible, I think, is a benefit there, not a detriment.
Okay. Gary, your thoughts, without me knowing the elevation of cover for the Caltech system out front, are you comfortable?
Yes, actually, they had quite a bit of cover. I believe it's almost 3 or 4 feet of cover, so I don't have any issues with the
Okay.
Caltech system at all. And it does have a positive connection into the discharge point, so it will become part of the Forge Parkway. You know, it'll discharge into that overall system and get into the detention basin that's out back.
Okay.
So I really don't have, I have no issues whatsoever with that system. And they utilize the design guidelines that we had in the prior. And I believe they're achieving almost 89% in terms of the TSS. So they're achieving a very good treatment rate on this.
Okay, good, thank you.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
one of the other comments that Beta didn't mention was Conservation Commission. As you know, we had an order of conditions for this project. We had an opportunity to meet with them last week, and they amended their order to reflect these drawings and did not object. Most of the improvements are outside of their jurisdiction, but the order has been amended to reflect these drawings.
Okay, so you're free and clear to move forward? with
Correct.
the project. Okay. Jay, comments, questions?
No, the only thing I had, Mr. Chairman, is, to be clear, you're comfortable with HDPE drainage site across the entirety of the site?
Providing it had enough cover, because typically don't, but when you do the connections, it's tough with RCP, that's all.
Yep.
We always like it in the grass strip if we can, that's all.
All right, sweet, that's it.
Okay?
Yeah, it's just, I think the only comment that didn't seem to be talked about so far is the fire department issued a comment regarding turning movements in the site.
Yes, and we have prepared a turning movement. I can pass that to the board members if that would be helpful.
Sure.
Give me one moment. I did print them out. I wasn't sure how much of the revised information you would want, but I have the exhibit, so it's handy. And I will get one to over this table. This is a copy of the response letter that we'll be providing to the board, and within there is the fire truck.
Awesome, thank you.
turning movement.
Thanks.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
That pull out.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're gonna make sure, Mike sees this as, in the fire department and Beta as well, for record.
Copy of that response letter.
Thanks, man. Okay, so, from what I gather, trees, you're all set, you're gonna clear
Yes.
enough for site distances, you're gonna do the granite curbing in the front, match the rest.
Correct.
HD pipe, we've got that resolved, and then this paperwork, so I think, I'm probably gonna make a motion to close the hearing with those amendments, but then we'll vote on it at the next meeting, just clarify all this, get it all squared away with Beta, Mike, Amy.
Just a note, Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
if you close the hearing, they are not able to submit any updated plans.
But we can, you wanna count this as,
Can I have copies of the updated drawings tonight? If I submit those,
So if you want to know.
they would be part of the record.
all right, so what we'll do
Just
is,
keep it open.
we'll keep it open, and
Okay.
we'll get all the information, and we'll just close it and vote that night, because it was a fairly small amount of work. Is that, you okay with that, Amy? Okay. So we'll be all set. Okay, so I make a motion to continue,
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, Greg, just a quick question. Through you, just on the plan, in case I missed it, I see that we're adding the warehouse in the back that's gonna have 8 storage doors or dock-high doors, it looks like. The plan doesn't seem to call out any specific trailer parking. Is there gonna be trailers on site? And has that been contemplated where it's not in the way of snow removal, traffic, et cetera?
That was actually on the previous renderings, where they were gonna have the storage of the trailers is supposed to be demarked with paint stripes, et cetera, so that should be on the previous drawings from the last rendering that we've gone through.
And
Okay.
it's
Can you
still-
Thank you, Mr.
just
Chairman.
for Chris's point, just make sure it's on the drawing, I believe it was on the last series of drawings that we saw as well. But
Correct,
yes,
and
Chris,
we haven't changed that.
yeah, never changed. Thank you.
Great,
Chris.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Amy, which date?
I think, if we can defer to the engineer, I know that you have everything revised, that you can get everything to Beta, that hopefully Would they be ready by the next meeting?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
That
We're
would be
done,
February
so we
5th?
can get it to them this week, tomorrow or within a couple days.
Make
Okay.
a motion to continue to
To
February fifth,
February,
is that the next one?
no, February
Fifth.
8th?
Fifth.
Oh, my apologies, okay. So, motion to continue to February 5th? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so, okay. No, that's okay. We'll go to our next, continued public hearing, which would be for Uncas Ave, continuation. If I can go to Amy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So kind of going off of, last time they were in front of us was November 20th. The board had expressed concerns about the common driveways, which they have changed, and they moved the houses that are facing the street without the common drives. I know that the board expressed concern about the turnaround at the end of the street, which I don't know if that's been addressed yet. But most importantly, the concern was about the traffic in the area. So I know that they've submitted a traffic study, Beta has reviewed it, they're online as well, that can answer questions. If the board is comfortable with the traffic study and what they see, they did look at the developments in the area as well. So that's included as well. This is only for 2 lots, so every lot would have to come back for a special permit in the future.
Correct. Okay. Thank you, Amy. I'll go to Mike from DPW. Mike, if I could.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the past, we did have a conversation with the applicant's engineer about the drainage design and any increased impervious area that'd be associated with this. And the way that this site was designed and built, it was oversized based on previous design, so we're still well within those limits there, so there's no impacts to the drainage system at all. The traffic, I just actually took a look at the traffic today, just to take initial review, but I know Beta took much more in-depth look at that, so I'll defer to Beta on the traffic review.
Okay. All right, and then, Gary, you out there?
Yes, I believe Jeff is on,
Right.
Jeff or Dennis, so one of the other individuals from Beta is actually gonna talk to the traffic, because I didn't really review this other than the traffic issues that the other members
Oh,
of
all
Beta
right,
were
'cause I
actually.
had a letter with your, It's
So we,
probably
no,
the
it's,
other
from Jeff with Beta.
oh, okay. Well, it has Gary's name on the end of it, so.
He's so used to seeing my name.
Yeah,
Greg.
okay. So let's,
Do you want, Jeff is online. He's on
Yeah.
Zoom.
if,
Can I get a quick update from the applicant first?
yeah, I want Jeff to kind of keep this one short and sweet, because this is only specifically for 2 lots, because the other thing is we can't vote on this tonight. Because we only have 2 members that were here from this previous meeting. So, we're gonna have to push it, but let's get it brief, and then we wanna hear a full detailed report with Beta on the next, continuation of this, okay? But if you could give us an update, please, that'd be appreciated. If you wanna just introduce yourself
Sure.
for the record.
For the record, Rob Truax, GLM Engineering Consultant. With me on the line is Bill Scully from the Traffic Consultants. He did the report, so he can answer questions on the report tonight. So I do believe at our last meeting, the only outstanding issue was basically the traffic study in the area and the streets and whatnot. So I think we provided that. It was reviewed. Do you want to hear a little summary of that from the traffic engineer?
Yes,
I think we can ask Mr. Scully to speak. He's on the line.
and we'll defer back to Beta as well, but
Sure.
I don't know if we wanna get into it too much, because this is just for the initial 2 lots.
I
tonight,
agree.
Okay, so if, Mr. Scully wants to give us a run-through?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We were retained by the applicant to initially uh, it was understood that just to get a handle on the difference in traffic generation that would occur going from the duplex type project to the triplex type project, 18 units to the 27 units. And we documented that, submitted that to the town and the board probably back in early December. And following that, there was more of a question of can we do a traffic study, try to get a little better handle on the impact of going from the 18 to 27 units. So we met with Beta and Amy, went over the scope of what we needed to look at, and conducted some site reconnaissance, the traffic counts in mid-December. Took a lot of the information from Beta, had done an analysis at the intersection of East Central with King and Chestnut, as well as the previous studies of the residential developments down the street in on East Central. So we took that all into account. We also, and then made an estimate of how we thought traffic would flow in and out of the site. And we documented that in the report dated January 2nd. And with that, we did determine that the difference between the 18 units and the 27 units is fairly small, pretty minimal. Traffic will disperse, obviously, once it leaves the site. Either head down to East Central and making maneuvers, or based on observations and knowledge of the area, that if you were going to 495, for an example, in the morning, instead of coming out, taking a left onto East Central or trying, you may in fact shoot up through the neighborhood, get to Summer, and then on to King to 495. However, that amount of traffic is projected to be pretty small. You may have one or two trips potentially in the peak hours. Coming back home, if you were coming home from 495, you would tend to just come down to East Central, stay on King Street to East Central, take a right, and right onto Uncas. We did the analysis of the project under both conditions, the 18 unit and the 27, on the intersection of East Central and King and Chestnut, and very little impact in terms of peak hour delays, no change in level of service, virtually really no impact. And there's no difference really between the two development options. So going to that triplex option doesn't really change conclusions in the analysis. We submitted that to the town, and I know Jeff will probably talk about it. We saw a review letter today, and I think in general they concurred with our analysis and conclusions, and be able to answer any questions.
Okay, good, thank you. I guess I'll go to Jeff from Beta, you there?
Yeah, good evening.
Jeff, if you could give us a brief, we're not gonna make any big decisions tonight, but we wanted to get your thoughts on what's been submitted already.
Sure, yeah, so we reviewed the traffic impact analysis, like Bill Scully mentioned, from January 2nd. They performed the scope of work that we actually suggested to them. It was done according to industry and state standards. They collected some new data at the intersections, including Hill Avenue, which showed a small amount of traffic, existing conditions. They took into account background projects in the area, the Taj Estates. The trip generation for the projects is considered very low, between a minimum of 4 trips in a peak hour to a maximum of 12. So these are considered very, very low volumes. The highest would be 1 vehicle every 5 minutes. The project wouldn't change level service at any of the intersections, so it would have a very marginal impact. The only thing we really noted was the westbound queue on East Central Street, at King Street would go past Uncas Avenue. That could block people getting out, you know, the town could consider maybe, don't block the intersection, don't block the box pavement markings. And really, that's all we had. The trip generation is so low, it would be hard to detect an impact of that side's trip generation on the existing conditions. So we agree with Mr. Scully's assessment. It's going to have really a minor impact in the area in terms of traffic operations.
Okay, thank you. Anybody from the board? Jay or Beth? Chris?
Nothing from you, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
No? Anybody from the audience? If you just want to introduce yourself, approach the mic, please.
Catherine Tower, 54 King Street. So I reviewed a lot of the reports and stuff online. One thing I noted in the most recent report from January 2nd was that the project on the agenda for later this evening was not included. So that project is 388 parking spaces, which will flow through this area and impact that traffic turning up King Street. So I didn't know why that wasn't included in the study, because the plan for that was placed in December of '23. So why was that not included in the most recent traffic study?
I think it's,
Go ahead.
let's just say, I think a simple answer for that is that it's not an approved project yet, under construction, or.
It's not even on the books yet.
Yeah, it's.
That's
But
part of
in
it.
reading the report, there's a future build part
Yeah.
to that report, and nothing was mentioned. So if there was a future project in the works in the town, shouldn't that have been addressed?
I think that it's future works if it's approved already in the pipeline for being constructed. It's not approved.
The other question I had is in speaking with neighbors up that live in that neighborhood, they don't use Hill Street, they don't use Uncas Ave to exit, they actually use Lewis Street. They come down that way and then make the left onto Central Street. Didn't see that addressed as far as any traffic study impact there. Obviously, I don't think you can put another light there. I don't think you can put a light at the end of Uncas. I don't know if there's a thought of making the exit from Uncas a right turn only, because there's multiple accidents at that intersection already. There was 2 last week down there. And anytime there's any type of activity, this traffic backs up. My son works at McDonald's. I've come down to drive him to work, and I have to wait to turn into McDonald's because the traffic is backed up from that light. So that's, my first concern was the traffic. The other question I had is regarding the drainage system. I don't know if anyone's been up to the site lately. There is a large pond that is approximately 17 inches deep behind my house. So I don't know, being told that the drainage system is in place and working, I don't know if that needs to be reevaluated.
Okay.
And I do have pictures for that if anyone wants them.
That's a functioning system, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes.
If you want to respond. Department of
I haven't
Transportation.
seen the water in there, Mr. Chairman, I'd have to go and look at
All
it.
right, maybe take a peek.
There you go.
And then the other, I haven't heard anything about busing addressed. Are you planning on running a bus route through this neighborhood now to accommodate any children that move into the neighborhood?
Well, the buses run up there anyways, as I understand, because there's kids up there.
Okay,
So,
and then,
it's just-
there was no comment on from the report. There was supposed to be a impact from the fire department, a statement from the fire department. I didn't see any, report from the fire department as far as their, review of the site.
Okay, so we already kind of, yeah, we can have the fire department take a peek at it again. They already went through the first,
They went through the first, there is a
Multiple
note in
phases,
the
yeah.
second report noting, the width of the road, if it meets the fire department's
yeah, that width is,
guidelines.
what,
I forget what it is off the top of my head, but the subdivision was reviewed and approved back when we built it,
three
so.
different times, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
so, I mean, it's really not what we're here for tonight, we're just
No.
here for the individual lots, we're not here for the roadway.
No, and we can double check, but pretty sure that met all the criteria of the rules and regulations at the time
It
when
did.
it came through. Yeah.
And then the last question I had, I noticed on the revised site plans, all the ledge is now marked out. Portion of that being behind my house, so again, my question is regarding blasting, drilling,
That-
anything, any more comments on that?
That goes through fire department, any kind of blasting, they'll do a pre-blast survey, then they'll blast, but fire department oversees all the blasting operations.
Right, and that was what was noted last time, but there was no indication if they plan to blast,
If they run into ledge doing the foundations, they'll probably have to do some blasting.
Yep.
And if they can't hammer it out,
Yep.
generally.
But if they do, they'll have to file everything with fire department, go through fire
Correct.
and
department.
residents will be notified prior
Yes,
to?
oh, yes, yep.
Because I've noticed, you know, like, as I said last time on Facebook, there's a lot of comments about blasting being done in town and nobody knowing that it's occurring.
Fire department's fully aware of any kind of blasting, it's part of the regulations for the blasting company to go pull permits for fire departments.
So is it my
Directly overseen-
responsibility as a citizen to call the fire department if I hear blasting?
Nope, because they've already been notified, they have to pull permits in order to blast.
No, but how do I know that that's what's going on?
How do you, sometimes they'll do a pre-blast survey and they'll let the neighbors know too, so, but that's why they blow the horns as well.
If you don't, there's a certain distance from where, if you're in a butter to a blasting zone, it's so many feet that you're required to be noticed. Do you have that number?
Was it
No, I'd require.
500,
It's less than that.
300 feet, I think, maybe?
It's 300.
I don't know.
I'm within
I
20
can't
feet.
remember off the top of my head, but.
I'm 20 feet from the property
Yeah.
line,
Then
so.
theoretically, you should be notified of the proper procedures to get.
Yeah, I mean, I
the
just, I
permit
work
for
from home,
blasting.
so I can't obviously
Yeah.
have blasting going on when I'm on work calls.
Yep.
So
So
that's.
that is definitely overseen by fire department, 100%.
And, does anybody want me to forward those pictures of the water? You want them for the record?
You can put them from record, but it could be part of the way the drainage system was designed to hold certain period of water for a period of time to discharge at a slow rate, so.
This was after,
It does.
this picture was taken after approximately like 3 inches of rain.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know
That's
that,
probably what it's
Shouldn't
doing
have
its
water
job.
in it.
Yeah.
17 inches seems
Yep.
excessive though.
No, the
Is it
design,
pond?
go ahead.
It's a pond?
No,
No,
it-
no,
no,
just-
it's literally, it looks
No,
like
no,
a
no.
Detention
pond.
basin?
It's a yeah, that's what
It's-
I.
it-
Yeah,
it's
no,
probably a
that
basin,
sounds like
so-
it's functioning. Yeah.
That's, so it doesn't flood out the area.
Maybe,
Yeah.
to help this lady understand, would you guys in your engineering capacity,
I mean,
Mike, explain how one of
Yeah,
those
here.
works?
I'll,
So-
I'll toss that
it-
one to you, but
Well,
big guy, you
I'm
got.
just, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Where is the water? You said it's behind your house.
Yeah, it's, so I abut the,
You're on King
I'm on
Street.
King Street.
Okay.
I abut the back of where building 2 and building 3 are
Okay,
on the plan. It is where basically where building 3 would be.
that's where the water is?
Yes.
That's not the drainage basin.
Drainage
That's-
basin's across the street on the other side.
That's on the-
just
that's a low
point where the
area that's
foundations
Because
traffic.
I
are.
know the other side of the development is where they had all the flooding the first time when the land was cleared.
Yeah, that would have been down the other
Yes,
side.
the
That's
water's on my side.
So-
That's where the
Sure.
foundations were.
It sounds like it's a low point in the site right now.
Just take a
collecting
peek,
water.
just, yeah. But you're higher than that anyway.
Well, that, my concern though is if they raise it to compensate that I'm gonna get water.
No, you
I
should.
don't have a basement, so
No.
I don't have any place for it to
No,
go.
there's also the pre and post treatment, and they can't dump any more water than what's already going onto your property. So a lot of times, these clean up water runoffs from all different locations and trapping it into drainage systems, therefore directing it in certain ways so it doesn't flood areas. So a lot of times, it helps certain areas with water problems.
Well, I don't have any, that's why I don't want
No,
any.
no, no, and you're not
Because
supposed to
I've,
either.
like I said, I've talked to my neighbors. I moved
Yep.
in just like a year and a half, 2 years
Yep.
ago.
Yep.
And walking my dog, I've talked to multiple people in the neighborhood, and they've told me the horror stories, like of, you know, having to regrade their whole yards for putting French drains in, and they're still getting water issues. And the last thing I want is, A, my neighbors to go through that again, but I don't want my house to be impacted either.
Yep. Mike, you wanna give them a quick rundown on the pre and post if?
So as I was saying, the detention basin's on the other side of the site, closer to Crockrath, so it sounds like maybe a low point on the site. But if you had pictures, you want to submit them, that'd be good, and the
Okay.
engineer could check it out, and we could maybe take a peek at them too.
Okay,
Okay?
Yep.
Thank you,
I think that's all I have. Thank you.
thank you. Just approach the mic, give your name, address, please.
Yes, my name's Donna Paradise. I live at 9 Cook Street, which is near the retention pond. Yes, we have water in our cellar. We have water in our cellar now, it's in the sump pump. It's 2 weeks after the storm. we're still pumping. You know, the development's higher, they put a lot of fill in there. The retention pond is obviously lower than the street level of the development. Our yard's probably a little lower than that. We are right near the pond. I don't know the exact elevation, but I think they're probably pretty close, my ground level and the bottom of the retention pond. So yeah, it is a concern, and I know that, you know, the impervious area for the triplex isn't very different than the duplex, but every little bit, you know, concerns us and all of our neighbors. Everybody had hoses going out in the road the past couple of weeks. We're the closest there. We're the only ones I know of that are still pumping, but it is a concern for our neighborhood.
Okay.
And you are right, we don't go through a hill, downhill Ave, because it's bad, it's narrow, it's probably 15 feet at one point, and there's ledge on one side, and there's a house and a garage on the other side, so there's not a lot of space to make that wider. So if traffic is coming through our neighborhood, and it will, because people will be avoiding the King Street, Chestnut, Route 140 intersection, they're gonna come down Hill Ave. And it's really not built for that. I have been in the position where I've been on Hill Ave, and one of us had to back up to go down that road. Two cars can't pass each other there. So,
Yep.
you know, concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, can I
Yeah.
just ask a quick question? I know our purpose is to be reviewing just the two lots, but in my mind, I'm having a hard time thinking that in the future, there could be more lots coming through. So how do we just look at the two lots without thinking of the project as a whole?
So, if I can speak on that a little bit, as far as the drainage goes, we did look at the project as a whole. So what was submitted showed the 3-unit buildings on every lot. And that's what we submitted in our drainage report, this newest one that we gave to the town engineer and Beta to review. So
Sure.
we did look at it as a whole,
Yeah,
from that
I guess
standpoint.
let me finish what I
Go
was
ahead.
gonna say. It was just, I'm thinking of it more from the perspective of the traffic. I mean, I know you've reviewed everything drainage-wise and whatnot, and it's up to code for those aspects of the project. For me, looking at this, I guess just a little further explanation from, I think Bill Scully or from Beta's traffic reviewer, that on the page, the last page, last comment, future build conditions. It seems as though everything is noted as being just small incremental increases to traffic and no big deal. But when it's future conditions, comment number 6, it's capacity analysis results are reasonable. However, the 2 bullet points that are noted don't seem pretty reasonable to me. That vehicle queues for the through movement on East Central Street at King Street and Chestnut Street is currently 290 feet long in the morning and 380 feet in the evening. Peak hours will extend beyond Uncas Ave, blocking vehicles turning left on East Central Street westbound. The vehicle queue lengths will be exacerbated by additional background traffic. And then the second bullet, the Uncas Ave northbound approach to East Central Street will operate at a level of service E in the PM peak hours with long delays, although the total approach volume will be low. I guess just somebody explain that to me. How is that not an impact?
Jeff, you wanna dive in on that one?
Yeah, so, yeah, the queue lengths are long. That's an existing condition. Would you be able to tweak that with signal timing? Maybe a little bit, but probably not enough to, reduce it so it's in front of Uncas. The level of service E, it's common for unsignalized intersections to operate like that. That's the way unsignalized minor streets, that's kind of how they're designed. Level of service E is not uncommon. It just means you have to wait to make particularly a left turn at that intersection. So the volumes are low. People would have to wait. We suggested, talk with the town. Maybe we don't block the box, so vehicle queues don't block that area. Give people a better chance to make a left turn out of that movement. So Again, level of service E, I don't think that's the condition today. You'd be adding a couple more trips to that intersection in the peak hour. Not many. Would delay increase? Probably a little bit, depending on when they occur. But there's not too much to do. If the delay got so bad, I guess people would avoid that intersection. If you put pavement markings in to prohibit the queue going through there, give people a better chance of making a left turn, so they don't have to shoot through the gaps to get into that left turn.
Mr. Chairman, can I just add a few comments add to what Jeff just did? And just looking at our analysis tables, and while Jeff made his comment about the queues would be exacerbated by this, I doubt that there's any change. In the summary table of ours, we're looking at the maximum queues and they're not changing with the project. We're both at the signal, so both blocking Uncas as well as on Uncas itself. Most of the traffic just during peak hours is taken, right? And I know it's anecdotal. I'm by there all the time, and I hardly see any traffic coming out, period, of Uncas in the peak hours. Right turn can certainly make it. But do not block the box. I mean, that's up to the town. I'm not sure that's a great solution at that spot. You're about 100 feet from the signal, from the stop bumper, and you have a do not block the box. It might allow the vehicle to enter East Central and sit in the box. But if the queues are really, longer, it's not really allowing that movement. Another option the town could do if they wanted to is peak hour turn restrictions. Say no left turn, but that could affect. It's probably more traffic coming out of there related to DeVita's. So that. But it is another action that the town can consider. But if you look at the analysis, that the level of service doesn't change with the project, whether it's the duplexes or the triplex. We looked at total. The intersection does not change. The level of service stays the same. In fact, the level of service overall, which you may or may not believe it, but it's level of service speed in the morning peak hour and D in the afternoon, based on the signal time. And that was the data's some of the last reports that they did. So anyways, I think, we've looked at it in total. Doesn't change the needle. It's very similar to the existing conditions as well. So we're willing, if the town really wants to do don't block the box, we don't have any objections.
Bill, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm having a hard time hearing you. Could you just talk a little louder? If you don't
Oh,
mind?
yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I never know if I'm yelling or, but,
Thank you, sorry.
but we are, we believe that going, we're under we started with the premise that the duplex is an approved project and this is going to the triplex. And we just don't see much impact between going from that to the other. And in total, whether it's the 18 or 27 units, again, we're seeing levels of service pretty much the same as the existing conditions. No change from the no build, future no build. Anyways, I think if there were actions that people were concerned about, the no left turn coming out during the peak hours, or don't block the box, completely, that would be all day. We did look at, the Hill Street area. We made a count over there. It's a fairly low volume road. We had 2 days of data collection, and it's somewhere around 100 vehicles per day over there, and the speeds were right in the area of the posted speed. So, and that would be my more concern with everything over there, would be if speeds were in fact much higher than the posted speed limit, but they're not. So we're gonna have sidewalk. You know, we have a sidewalk on our site, it connects with the sidewalk down Uncas, gets people to East Central Street. We did not discount for pedestrian-related trips, but you're certainly close enough to walk to the market, walk to the coffee shop, walk to the bank, walk to the restaurants. So, you in fact may end up with less traffic than we've projected as a result of it.
Okay, good.
That's all I have.
Good.
You got any other questions? I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. Well, we're gonna continue this anyway, so.
I have one final question regarding traffic.
Oh, go ahead.
Was there any study done regarding the right turn at the end of King Street onto 140? Because if you have someone coming out of Uncas that can't make that left and is now across 140, those people fly down King Street. And if they take in that right, you're gonna end up with people getting T-boned. So was that addressed at all?
Mr. Love?
Well, our analysis assumes signal timing as it is today. That allows for either right turn movement to go under Green Avenue or when Chestnut and King Street open up, then it's fully green. We didn't look at that intersection to change that. I don't believe in the beta study from last year that they recommended changing that either. So I'll let Jeff, if you want to add anything to it.
I think that's correct. I don't recall that.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, we're gonna continue this anyways, but, go ahead, Amy.
Mr. Chairman, we do have someone on Zoom. Kobe has his hand up
Okay.
for a question.
Oh. Kobe, you got a
Thank you, if
question?
I may, I might not get another chance to speak on this just per timing, so I wanted to make sure that I express my support for this project. Obviously, look at water impacts or some of the neighbors' concerns, but this is the exact type of project that we need. Bringing small units. When we talk about affordable housing, it's not just rent restricted housing. It's smaller units that are affordable for people at different price points. This is a great example of a project like that in Franklin Center. I think Bill's last point should not be understated, and Beth knows as well as anyone. When you live downtown near Franklin Center, your walking distance from places, that's the biggest reduction on vehicles miles traveled. It ends up being less driving than the same number of homes further from Franklin Center. So I obviously go through your typical considerations, but this seems like the type of project that we should be supporting and making work. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to go to Chris. Chris, are you all set for now?
Yeah, no questions, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're going to make this a continuation, February 5th, Amy?
Yep.
Okay, so make a motion to continue Uncas Ave till February 5th. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I can just ask, what do we need for board members at that meeting? You said we only have 2 voting members tonight?
Yeah, you need 3, but one of our members who was part of it is out tonight.
Okay.
So
You're not able to vote, Beth?
No,
Oh, Jay.
Jay
Jay,
can.
Chris.
Okay.
And Chris.
Oh,
Unless you
and
want
Chris.
us to change the board again, then, we'll have to
No.
wait another year.
I just didn't understand, because I saw 4 members, and I wasn't sure what.
Yeah, there were 2 new members
Jen
and
had
3
it.
of the past.
Unexpected.
Okay.
Technically, I
We'll
don't
work.
count in the alternate position from the past board.
Correct. Okay,
All right, great. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. See you on the 5th.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We'll go to our next continued public hearing, which would be for 10 Kenwood Circle. And Amy, if you could give us a brief overview, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that last time they were in here, we had asked that Beta and a traffic engineer review the circulation, the parking, the best way to accommodate the cars that are being parked on site, as well as picking up the packages. So I know that Beta and their traffic engineer has gone back and forth. I just felt it was important to give the board an update. It's not resolved at this point. I think there's still some more updates to do to kind of figure this out. But before they go any further, I felt it was important an update was provided, and then if the board had any feedback, both engineers can go back and work together on it.
Okay, good, thank you. So I guess, Mr. Cannon, if you want to just introduce yourself, and we'll go directly to you for a overview, please.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Edward Cannon on behalf of OnTrack, which is also Lasership, it's sort of one and the same for our purposes. I'm joined tonight remotely by Jack Mills from OnTrack, Ian Kelly from OnTrack, and Jeff Dirk from VAI. We got great advice from the board last time, which is, hey, have VAI get together with Beta, work out a solution for the site. And our hope was we would come back before the board with, hey, we have a clean letter, and then get the board's comments. So Beta did a terrific job in December, very thorough, had some great insights. VAI responded to that in January. And so we were just, so you know how it works. They address things, and we're hoping to sort of get something back from Beta, but Beta just hasn't had an opportunity to respond yet to that. So we didn't know if it would be best to continue, but Amy thought it would be best to come in and give the board an update. So Beta did, again, identify a few things, and if you'd like, I can go through that letter, Mr. Chairman, would you like, and sort of
Sure, because
briefly.
I'm going to defer back to Dennis just for his brief overview as well.
Oh,
I know we're not going to.
then that's fine. I don't have to
Yeah.
repeat, so we'll let him, that's fine.
You sure?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That's-
This is more of an update for everybody to make sure we just cross the Ts and dot the Is as
Well,
well.
Amy's point was good, was that we're at this point, we're not quite finished yet, we may be, but if the board, ultimately it's up to the board, right? So there may be things that the engineers feel okay, but we would love to get the board's feedback
Sure.
with an eye towards, at the next hearing, being able to, continue one more hearing and then hopefully finalize things.
Okay, thank you. Dennis, I'll go to you, based on your report from December. If you want to give us, and everybody watching, a recap of it, because it looks like obviously there's still some issues down there.
Sure, yes. So Dennis Flynn with Beta. I think there was a good summary there of the events that have transpired in this sort of brief time since last month, and yeah, just maybe just a few things to highlight. I think there's some things worth some maybe additional discussion. Obviously, don't want to linger on too much this evening, but just a couple of things that were noted and responded to, and we do appreciate the responses that Vanessa had provided. Those were very thorough, thoughtful responses. But just going through, if I can, just sort of from our comments and just sort of the reaction, and then just wanted to offer it for some additional consideration. And this was just a little bit unique, just looking at sort of the traffic management and circulation and sort of parking on the site. And I know a traffic management plan had been developed. One thing we did want to highlight, it did appear that at least one of the items that we had identified or commented on, the response was that not all of the items or not all of the components of the revised plan had yet been implemented, and maybe they were waiting for some feedback from the planning board. So I did want to kind of did start there. We did have a comment. It was comment 3 from us about, we did notice that some of the on-site parking on sort of the south and east side of the site appeared pretty much full at 7 a.m. at the time we were there. I do want to just note that we did make our observations December 6th, and it was acknowledged through the responses here that was probably about the fullest or busiest time this particular site would see, for obvious reasons. This is the holiday season, so there was probably a little bit higher volume than maybe on sort of a typical routine day, just because of what action transpires there, that was a little heavier than normal. But the reaction to or response to that comment was, in fact, that not all of the components had been addressed. And I don't know if there was a possibility for some expansion on that, or some clarification, or maybe some specifics of what still needed to be implemented and, you know, what the plan was for doing that. So if I can, I just would like to request a little bit of, you know, reaction there, or some additional information on that comment.
Okay, good, thank you. I'll go to Vanessa and Associates, if Jeff is out there. If Jeff, you wanna give us a briefing of where you are with some of the comments that we're gonna work our way through this?
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Jeffrey Dirk with Vanessa and Associates, the transportation consultants for the project. So I think as Dennis had mentioned, we had made some specific recommendations to the applicant to implement some changes with respect to signs and pavement markings and some circulation within the project site. I think first off, as our attorney was mentioning, in terms of getting some feedback from the board, that we did have some recommendations dealing with off-site parking. That off-site parking, implementation of some signs and things to really ensure that people aren't parking on the street, which I think is kind of what started some of the conversation here. Because those improvements needed to take place within the public right-of-way, it was not something that we wanted to implement or should in fact implement without the board's approval and consideration by Beta as well. So that type of improvement, anything within the public right-of-way, had not been implemented because we don't have approvals to do that. So I think that's one of the items that was yet to be addressed. The other items with respect to circulation within the project site, as we talked about during some of the peak times that Dennis had mentioned, the idea of having a stacking lane or queuing lanes within the project site parallel to Kenwood Circle to be able to stage vehicles in that area there before sending them internal to the building to be loaded. That had not been fully implemented. And then the entrance into the building itself, there was discussions and recommendations as it related to limiting the queuing in that short area because there's only the ability to stack 5 or 6 vehicles before they kind of get into the building itself. To do some changes with respect to the operations in that area. That was a work in progress as well. And then there were some internal changes as it relates to how they manage vehicles and load them within the site to try to improve efficiency. So I think, as Dennis had mentioned when he was out there, it was kind of a combination of peak conditions and the fact that the site was in some state of flux as it relates to implementing those recommendations. So I think that's kind of where the site was at. It was kind of in an interim period when Dennis had seen it. So I think there was some good that was observed, and I think it's good as it relates to also those peak conditions. But I think we fully value Dennis's observations, and I think as you look at our responses to his comments, they're all in the affirmative. We think that the board's request that the 2 traffic engineers go back and work on kind of back and forth to come up with a good plan. I think like most peer reviews that the town undertakes, it's resulted in a better project, and I think we just need to implement these measures. Maybe have Dennis look at our responses, see if there's something above and beyond even what we've agreed to do that he thinks might be better. But we fully agree with the tweaks that Dennis had recommended, and we think it's going to make the site work much better.
Okay, good, thank you. I believe the last time that you were here, and if I remember correctly in the plan, there was some area to the right side of the site that could have had additional parking that's added on to. I'd like to see if that can be pursued. I'd also like to see a drawing with the circulation, the stacking, the queuing of all the cars, the trucks. I'm not in favor of parking on the street. I'm not, the fire department, any snow plowing, et cetera, that's a recipe for disaster. The other means and methods will have to take place if you can't make it work on site. But I think once you work together between Beta and Jeff's group and come together with a plan, a circulation plan, showing the stacking, showing the queuing, signage, everything, so we can actually get our eyes on it to review it. I think that'll only help everybody make a better decision. And I think it'll help Beta, Mike, and everybody else in due process. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah? Jake, you good? Yeah? So maybe in the meantime, while this is all getting worked out, you can develop something so we can actually physically see what what we're working with.
Sure.
What the constraints are, and where the pluses and minuses are.
Absolutely great idea. I can speak to a couple of those. I know the area to, as you're looking from Kenwood to the building to the right, On Track is a tenant, so they don't own the building, so they can't just sort of enlarge that area. But in terms of, as well as, and Jeff Dirk mentioned that about the parking on the street, they're very happy to put whatever signage the board would recommend. They didn't want to just be presumptive and go out and put signage out without the board's approval. So no problem at all. They're just looking for guidance. But I think the idea, I mean, it's just about done, frankly, because VAI and Beta have been working fairly closely. So I'm confident that for the next meeting, we could have that together and for the boards. And if for some reason it's not, we'd seek a brief continuance. But I'm fairly confident we'll have all that together for the next meeting.
I think that'll be beneficial, and then show us on that, if you have the capability of adding to the right with the site plan, even if it's 15 parking spaces, that could be some of that queuing in the morning that I saw in the report, that you had stacking between durations of time from 7 to 8. That could take some of that queuing out of the cycle as well, so I think it could be a benefit. Beth, you good?
Yeah, no, I
Jay?
agree with your comments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chris?
It seems like the traffic guys have it under control.
Any comments, questions?
All set for now, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good. So obviously, we're gonna continue this, but this was more of a brief update where we're working, so, Amy?
February 26th.
Okay, so make a motion to continue 10 Kenwood Circle till February 26th. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Appreciate it.
Amy, there was one thing I did want to make note for Uncas Ave. We did receive an email and a letter from Mrs. Mucciarone. I want to make sure we just put that in, the documentation about Uncas Ave
Okay.
that she sent to myself and Beth. Okay, and then we're gonna take care of one more item of business, which would be meeting minutes. If everybody's read the meeting minutes from December 4th, do we have any additions or deletions? If not, make a motion to approve December 4th, 2023's meeting minutes. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Also for meeting minutes of December 18th, 2023, if there was any additions or deletions. If not, make a motion to approve the December 18th, 2023 meeting minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Want 5-minute recess?
Yeah, you want to do
Just,
5? You want to do a quick 5-minute recess?
Yeah, can we just do
Please.
that? And we'll
Chris, do a
get them
5-minute
all-
recess, please?
Yeah.
I'll,
And then get everything set up.
yep.
for East Central Street. This is for friendly amendment, I believe. If you want to introduce yourself to the record and to the board.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Edward Cannon, on behalf of the applicant, Tag Central LLC. I'm joined tonight by A.J. Alavisos from Tag Central LLC, Carlton Quinn from Allen and Major Associates. I think Carlton was trying to vote in the New Hampshire primary. Brian O'Connor from Cube 3 Architects, and Jeff Dirk as well from VAI is with us remotely. So yes, this is a LIP application's been filed, and the applicant is excited to bring this opportunity before the town, and certainly is looking forward to this board's feedback on what's proposed. So the site is the Stobart's Nursery site, and the applicant's been through tech review and has taken in a lot of the comments from that, particularly from the fire department, and incorporated them into what's been provided in the application and to this board. It's a 15-acre site. The application has 266 apartment units with a mix of 3- and 4-story buildings. That's actually been revised down to 265 units. And all of those would count, because they're rentals, towards the town's affordable housing stock. So in the application, I believe it was stated that 67 would count, but 67 would be the number of affordable units. But because they're rentals, all 265 would count towards the total. The parking ratio has been revised slightly from the application. I think it was stated at 1.4 per unit. That's actually down to 1.35 per unit. And we just wanted to alert you to those revisions. So 25% of the proposed units would be affordable. And what's really exciting about this opportunity is that it's a great need for this kind of housing in town. But also, if you've had a chance to walk back and to see the site, it's an old farm. It's an old dumping ground. And there's some beautiful water, sort of resources that are part of the site that right now, equipment, junk, just been strewn all over the place there over years and years of farming. That's just the way it was for years. And one of the key components of this project would be to clean that up and clean up those wetlands resources, which are actually beautiful aesthetically, and to also provide some needed housing. We did, just before I just pass along, did want to touch on, that's sort of a couple of the positive impacts to the town. The cleanup of the resource, the environmental resources, and then the addition of the housing stock. So those, we just wanted to, call to your attention. If I may, Mr. Chairman, ask Brian O'Connor from Q3 Architecture to sort of bring the board through the design of some of the buildings.
Sure.
Good evening. So I'm going to just quickly walk you through this site. This should be fairly fast. I just wanted to kind of explain a little bit of the layout and walk through the site planning. In this version of the plan, north is to the right, so we've sort of rotated ourselves 90 degrees just from an orientation standpoint. What we really did when we started looking at the site and the layout is think about this wetland resource and the stream that's on the site and how we could really take advantage of that as a focal point for the community. And so you'll see that stream sort of running north-south through the middle of the site, and that really became a defining element in the plan. There's an existing bridge connection that happens right at the head of the stream on the right-hand edge there on the north side. That really became sort of a point where we said there's sort of an east and a west side to this, and you'll notice this sort of the top of the page is the west side. Up there we have 2 4-story buildings and 2 fairly clean loops of surface parking that are gathered around some open green space. on the east side, down along the bottom, as you drive in from the entry to the site, which is to the far right, you would come in off of Central Street and you would arrive at a clubhouse. This clubhouse is really the social center of the community, sitting up at the front of the site right as you come in. There's a little loop drop-off area there with about 12 parking spaces for visitors and guests. Continuing on into the site beyond the clubhouse, there's a little pool area and outdoor deck. Within the club, there would not only be leasing functions, but also really core community amenities like a fitness center, some games areas, open lounge areas, things like that. As you come into the site, you would then get to the bridge that I mentioned that's at the head of the stream there, splitting to the west and to the east. As you continue into the site on the right-hand side, down below on the east side, you'd have a 3-story building and then stepping up to 2 4-story buildings. So what we did is, when we were thinking about this sort of east and west side and thinking about how to organize the buildings on the site, there was a real focus not only towards making sure that we're taking advantage of the water resources there and creating views and attractive corridors, but also orienting the buildings in more of a north-south orientation to allow the shorter ends of the buildings or the edges of the building to start to address the street or face towards Central Street. And what that really does is it minimizes the visual impact and takes advantage of the depth of this site. So when you're on East Central looking into the site, you're looking first at a single-story clubhouse building, then at a 3-story building that steps up gradually, and then 4-story buildings that are not only substantially deeper into the site, but also turn 90 degrees to the edge of the road, so you're minimizing the visual impact there. What you'll also notice is that there's a sort of deliberate attempt to try to create 2 communities, if you will, and the sort of some very light colored paving areas that you see that highlight the entries to these buildings that are kind of all grouped together in the middle on both the east and the west side to try to create this sort of sense of community and this sense of relationship between the buildings. As far as architecture goes, on the next page, if you don't mind, AJ, what we tried to do here is really look at creating a New England style that is really defined by traditional New England elements. And so there's a few really quick high-level things that are focused here. One is that this is a shingle-style pitched roof building, predominantly with lap siding. And what we're doing here is making sure, and I think this is really important, there's a major error created in a lot of building forms that are larger multifamily buildings where the roof pitches and the gable pitches are not traditional. They're not adequately steep to really reinforce that New England vernacular and the character we're looking for. So if you look in the upper right, the end of the 3-story building elevation, I think the traditional model here would be to just treat that entire end elevation as a giant gable. And what that does is it creates a very low slope, very flat pitch to the roof. What we're trying to do here is look at the ends of these buildings that are facing towards East Central and say, how do we make these look and read more like larger homes? So you'll see a gable coupled with a cross gable that define the end of the building. And then as you go down these longer elevations, you'll see elements that are really fairly traditional, both projecting bays, adjustments, and a little bit of color, rhythm, texture to the building, repetitive gables that break down that roof form, and you'll see balconies on every unit as you go. So thinking about gables, texture, quality of materials, the porches, the window rhythms, and sort of how these buildings read from the street are all really things that we've been focusing on. What we did want to show is just a couple of sample projects. These are all in different locations, so you know, a lot of the things that drive projects in one area are not relevant or germane to another area. So you'll notice, you know, in the lower right, that's a project in Billerica, Mass. that really has very little to do with what we're doing here, but is a very similar style building, executed in an architecturally very, very different manner. And what we're really doing here is just sort of focusing on some of the outdoor green space on the left-hand side, lower left. That's in Hopkinton, Mass. That's a little bit more of a traditional building form with a repetitive pattern of gables. These gables are actually a little low to my liking, both this and the other project, the Westerly on the upper right that's in Franklin. I'd like to see a little more pitch on these gables, a little more steepness in that roof form. And then in the upper left, a project in Hingham, Mass. That was recently completed that has really beautiful and sort of thoughtful outdoor character and quality to the green spaces. And this team, I think some members of this team have worked on a number of these projects together. So just thought it was useful to share these with you.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, just ask Carlton Quinn to bring through, the board through some of the waivers that would be requesting.
Good evening, Carlton Quinn with Allen & Major Associates. I'm going to go through a draft of the standard waivers we think we'll be looking for in this. This list is most likely going to change somewhat through the process, but this is our initial read through the zoning. I'm going to go in line by line. So the first one, section 185.7, is a use waiver, as multifamily use is not allowed in the existing commercial 2 district that the site is in. 185-11, these are all in the zoning bylaw. This is a bit of a procedural waiver. This is a waiver that only says you're only allowed 1 building on a lot unless you can prove that you meet the lot area requirements for each building. Since multifamily housing isn't allowed in this lot, there really is no lot area that we could meet with each building. Section 185.13, that is no building shall be greater than 3 stories. As Brian had noted, we have a mix of 3- and 4-story buildings on the property. 185.16, setback from streams and ponds. This notes that there should be a minimum 35 feet horizontal setback from any stream or pond. In this project, the east side of the stream has been degraded basically all the way up to the stream's edge. And this has been reviewed with the agent and the wetland scientist. I think they're generally in agreement that that is almost completely degraded to the edge pond. And degraded riverfront is actually excluded from the Wetlands Protection Act as a protected riverfront. So we don't have a final setback for you yet, but we are thinking that we probably will have a couple of setbacks within 35 feet of the stream. The parking schedule, as required, multifamily is required 2 stalls per unit. We're proposing a 1.35. 185-30, this is a tree planting requirement for any building within 150 feet of a right-of-way that's over 75 feet wide, which this is. We will have a very robust planting plan. We're just not sure it'll meet this exactly, but we will work to the best of our ability to make this work, but we are asking for that waiver. 185-31 is a site plan review requirement. That review will happen as part of the comprehensive permit, as they're all local permits are done in one. So that's more of a procedural waiver. The same with the impervious coverage, 185-40 D1L1 requires that the approved, anything with more than 80% impervious can provide artificial recharge, but it needs to be approved as part of the site plan process, or that's just a procedural waiver we're also looking for. And again, with 185-40 is basically a drainage requirement requiring the building inspector and Conservation Commission to approve the drainage and infiltration prior to approval, but this would all be done as part of the comprehensive permit. Chapter 153 waiver is a waiver from the Franklin Stormwater Management Bylaw. We will most likely be meeting all of these, but this approval should be done under the comprehensive permit and not as a separate stormwater approval. That's fine. We also have a number of wetland waivers. Some of these are actually required because of the deteriorated riverfront, and some are also just kind of customary for 40B because of the additional requirements that we'd have to do. We are meeting with the Conservation Commission on Thursday to review these. I can go through them or just have go through the Conservation Commission. So that's all I have for you.
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman, if we could ask Jeff Dirk to reappear and sort of talk about some of the traffic impacts, please.
Thank you.
So, good evening, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Jeffrey Dirk with Vanessa and Associates, the transportation consultants on the project. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Just have a few slides.
Not
if you
his
just-
screen. We can see it on
No,
this
sorry,
TV,
yeah.
but not there.
We can
Sorry
see it.
about.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
That'll be on
Oh.
TV.
Oh, yeah, I see it, Jeff,
That'll be
yes.
on TV. It's just not on that, but it
Perfect.
will be, it's on all the other ones.
Yep. We got
Okay,
it.
thank you, and I apologize.
No worries.
So for those of you that can see the screen, I'm just going to present a kind of a high-level overview of some transportation information for the project. I think it's helpful because, I know the board heard some comments earlier tonight on the East Central Street or 140 corridor, and obviously this project is located along that corridor, some intersections in common. So just to provide some context as to the project as it relates to trip generation and thoughts on some potential improvements related to the project. Let's see if I can get this to work to go to the next slide. Here we go. Just by way of an overview of the project itself, we're expecting, based on the number of units and the building types that are proposed, we have a mix of what we consider low-rise and mid-rise buildings as it relates to trip generation. The project's expected to produce somewhere between 105 and 126 vehicle trips during the peak hours on a weekday and on a Saturday. As that relates to Route 140, Route 140 accommodates somewhere around 1,500 vehicles per day. So to put those numbers in context, it's less than a 10% increase in traffic along the corridor. That 10% is typically within the range of fluctuations Monday through Friday on the corridor. So it's within that traffic volume fluctuation that occurs. Now, that being said, it doesn't mean, as we know, that there are backups that occur at some of the signalized intersections. So we're anticipating that there'll be the need to retime the traffic signals in order to accommodate the additional traffic flow from the project. But we think that with that level of improvement, this traffic should be able to be accommodated along the corridor itself. We are planning on some improvements, and I'll mention those in a minute, to make sure that we've got this highly walkable and bikeable project. So the project, as you saw, conceptually is designed as really meant to promote something where we can have walking to the town center and to the recreational and retail opportunities in the area, as well as bicycling, and we want to encourage that and make sure that as we're thinking about improvements, it embraces that and facilitates it so we can reduce the amount of traffic that's associated with the project. We are starting with a corridor that, because of the recent improvements that developers has made, as well as the town's investment in working with Beta, there are no high crash locations, and those crash locations, especially at Chestnut Street, have been addressed as a result of some of the improvements that have been undertaken in the area. And then lastly, as it relates to the site plan, we did review sight lines at the driveway to make sure that the sight lines meet what would be considered acceptable for safety. And I know those of you that are familiar with that area, it's a location that is relatively flat and level as it relates to Route 140 and the adjacent properties, and so there were no impediments to sight lines. So the driveway itself, as positioned, is in a good location from a planning perspective. So this slide just shows the context of the project site, so you can see it here, just in orientation where the site in yellow is shown, really just to show the project site in relation to the walking amenities that exist to the east of the project site. So connectivity by way of sidewalks and bicycling to get from the site to those areas, to Town Hall and the adjacent properties is important, is something that's going to be advanced as a part of the project itself. This slide just shows the traffic volumes associated with the project. So the highlighted yellow column is the estimated amount of traffic without reduction for use of public transportation, walking or bicycling. So you can see daily basis is about 1,346 vehicle trips, half in, half out. That gets added to about 17,000 vehicles per day that are on the Route 140 corridor. So it's an incremental increase, but not, again, it's something less than 10%. Which would be considered a kind of a daily variation or in traffic. The peak hour numbers, 123 vehicle trips during the morning peak hour, 126 during the evening peak hour, and then on a Saturday time period, We're predicting the project on a daily basis. On a Saturday, we produce about 1,212 vehicle trips, again, half in, half out. And then lastly, during the Saturday midday peak hour, it's about 105 vehicle trips. So those peak hour numbers, you can see where the 105 to 126 number came from. And again, in looking at this slide, just for context, on a daily basis, both a weekday and a Saturday, it's about 17,000 vehicles per day on Route 140. During the peak hours, it's about 1,500 vehicles during each of the peak hours. So these numbers that you see here, the 1346 and the 1212 get added to the 17,000. The 105 to 126 get added to about the 1,500 vehicles on 140 today. So again, it's less than a 10% increase in traffic. So we're not expecting to see any significant changes in levels of service, although there is a need for some improvements independent of the project. So the last set of slides are just kind of our preliminary recommendations, because we have not conducted a detailed traffic operations analysis to understand delays in queuing. That being said, because of the extensive amount of work that we've done on this section of 140, we are familiar with where the constraints happen and what the needs are for some of those improvements. So the first set of recommendations deal with the site plan, and I think as Carlton is developing the site plan and some of the things that you've heard about tonight, these are all things that he will put on those plans. They're just general good design practices, and Carlton's familiar with all of these, so just making sure driveways and circulating aisles within the site are sufficiently wide for two-way traffic and also accommodate vehicle maneuvering, entering and exiting parking spaces. The driveway, as it intersects with 140, will have stop sign control. There's no need for a traffic signal to accommodate the additional traffic from this project, and we would not meet the criteria to install a traffic signal at this location. We do have recommendations to make sure that, again, the site's highly walkable. That's going to be something that's done anyways, making sure that we have adequate sight lines and making sure that we have pedestrian and bicycle accommodations. Looking off-site, general recommendations, we know that there's going to be a need to retime traffic signals, especially at the two critical intersections to the west of the site at King Street and Chestnut Street, and then also at the Big Y driveway and the Franklin Town Hall driveway. Those are all locations that are in need of regular retiming just to accommodate changes in traffic flow, so certainly something we expect that will be needed as a part of this project. Mobility improvements are also very important. I've shown in the insert at the bottom of this slide here the sidewalk connection. So there are sidewalks along both sides of Route 140. They do extend just to about the project site, but there's a short segment somewhere, we'll call it about 500 feet of missing sidewalk that's needed to connect where the driveway is going to be located to the existing sidewalk. Once that's in place, and then extending that into the project site allows for that pedestrian connectivity to take place. So people will be able to walk from the project site to the Big Y supermarket, restaurants, other opportunities, and to the town hall to the west of the project site. So that's something that will be implemented as a part of the project itself. And then we have made recommendations for some sign and pavement marking enhancements as well as a part of the project. Again, all things that we'll evaluate as a part of the formal assessment. But I think our takeaway in looking at the project, its traffic, and understanding the Route 140 corridor is that there is capacity to accommodate the project, but there's also a need for some improvements. Mobility and walkability are important and will be things that will be need to be undertaken to connect the project site to the existing infrastructure. And then again, we do expect to be making some traffic signal timing changes. Lastly, we do and have recommended a transportation demand management program, and this is to encourage the use of alternative modes of transportation. This has been done for other residential projects along this section of 140 and will be something to be done as a part of this project just for good planning practices. So I'm going to stop sharing and I will turn it back over to the project team.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And then just for the board's reference, we do have up, at least on the screen here, just some samples of some of the current condition there and some of the just debris that's accumulated over years of farming operations. A lot of it is in the wetland or right up against the wetland that we'd be looking to clean up.
Good, thank you.
And with that, we're happy to listen to any suggestions the board may have.
I'll go to Amy first from Department of Planning. Amy, if you want to.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is actually kind of like the second application that we have come in for our friendly 40B process that the town established. I just do want to note that they have provided their project overview, the list of waivers, kind of limited drainage and traffic plan, and the site plan concept. And really, we developed this application process to gather feedback on a concept plan from the planning board. So where they've been to tech review, I just do want to note that the driveway was much more west of the site, almost along the lines. I think it's the veterinarian or the medical building right next to them, and we had requested that they move that away, which they have done. However, I think for more to fit along the street, the clubhouse should maybe be closer to the street, and the parking behind the clubhouse, I think, would really kind of make a difference. As far as the buildings on the east side, you know, the one building that really affects any residents around this whole area would be the 4-floor, 56-unit building. So I had thought of considering maybe a 3-story building. That's really the only one that impacts residents within the area. They will need to, I would recommend, and I don't think I heard it in the waivers, but to do a design review, to go through a design review process as well. We didn't get any color renderings, which is okay, but I would recommend that as well for any recommendations and being made to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike, you have some comment, or you want to?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, this is just conceptual at this point. We just, a couple of small observations, just to mention. One had to do with the municipal sewer system in the area. We just, with a project this big, we just want them to work with the water and sewer department and our consultants to make sure that the downstream sewer pump station have capacity, as opposed to maintaining, have a temporary holding tank on site that they could pump off hours, that sort of thing. We just that want to be evaluated. And just to point out that this section of East Central Street is under Mass DOT jurisdiction, so they'd have to go through them for any permitting connections, that sort of thing. And just, I mean, we talked about earlier too, the traffic on 140. One concern is, you know, the main concern is the intersection at King and Chestnut, where that is a problem. And we've looked at that a number of times ourselves. DPW's looked at that, and it's really just only so much that can be done to improve that intersection, where it's really an issue with the limited right-of-way there to really improve that intersection. It requires right-of-way taking, which is not really an option for us at this point. And Jeff had mentioned the sidewalk connection to the west, just extending that a little bit, which I thought was a good idea. And that was it, really.
Okay, good, thank you. Go to the board? I mean, I have some, but I'll wait, you guys go first.
Yeah, so I am generally supportive of housing projects, so I'd like to get that out there. Especially something like this, because I feel like this provides a fair amount of accessibility to people who are looking for homes in the area. My primary concern is really for the other homes that are already there, right? So, you know, potentially utilizing some of the on-site elevation you guys have towards the east of the site to best hide those buildings. You know, it looks like you get some pretty substantial drop based on the topography, so I think that's working in your favor. Obviously, I haven't really played with this like you guys have. I don't know if there's any way to shift the buildings and the parking orientation just to make the building appear a little smaller, but obviously that's up to you guys. And then really the other big comment I had was the parking requirement. 1.35 sounds a little bit low. I think 1.5 would be probably a bit better, but those were really my two big concerns. So.
Okay. Beth?
Along the lines of what Jay's saying, I generally am supportive of housing projects too. What I don't like for housing projects that come before us, ultimately I know this one will be decided upon by the ZBA, but when I'm looking at it, what I don't like is when somebody will take a site and maximize it for profit, which I understand is the way we work. We have to make a profit. But what is the reasoning for having to have four floors? Can you do this project with 3?
It's just to get enough units on the site to make the project work from an
Right.
economic standpoint. It's very difficult, especially now with interest rates and construction costs. So that's the purpose to bring it up to 4.
Understand, I do that too, I get it. I guess finances for me are a hard one to review in looking at a project. I look at a project not for what it's going to make the money for to make it work, but more so how is this going to fit in our community long-term? And we keep seeing numbers of projects coming through with significantly large numbers of housing units being requested, and the same answer. It's about finances and making the project work. I think if we're creative enough, we can make projects work, and it doesn't have to take up an entire site. I personally think that your parking numbers are okay with me, 1.35, you're bringing it down, less space needed for parking. You are, although this is a difficult stretch to walk on to get to the center of town, it's more than a mile away at this point. I would hope that people are going to be living here that want to take the train and walk and utilize our train service and our great downtown. But I'm skeptical whether that will happen from this point, knowing all the intersections at the Chestnut and King intersection, which is out of our control for fixing. There's nothing we can do about that, but we keep getting projects that are coming through with, well, our project only incrementally will affect that. Listen, I'm one of those, what was it, 17,000 people that use this corridor every day. Drive from my house downtown to Gillette Stadium every single day. And I can tell you, 2-3 times a week, traffic will be backed up past Jordan Road. Jordan Road. From Jordan Road to my house, which is downtown, on the town common, it will take me a half an hour. That shouldn't happen. But each project, minimal impacts to us, don't worry about it. We can modify signals. I have a hard time with more and more and more and more because we need to make a profit. So we do need housing. There's no doubt about that. We need housing. What kind of creative way can we find it to make it financially work for the developer and work for our community? The 4 floors, the 56 units that are shown on that eastern side, I don't disagree. Why can't it be 3? You know, it doesn't look like that's going to be very far away from any abutters, even that 3-story, 36 units. I mean, I have a hard time with large-scale buildings like that. I think it's great. I wish that I could say 100% support it, but if there's any way to decrease a little bit, think about the community in that respect, I guess that's how I feel.
I guess to piggyback off of Beth, as Amy said, I think some elevations would go a long way to kind of show what you guys are looking for and how that would view from, the abutting properties in the street. And that would give us a much better sense of, hey, does a 4-story work on that particular building? Do we need to look at a 3-story for that building there? You know, the 4s might work on other parts of the site, but that particular one did stand out to me as well. But as I said earlier, I think you might have some benefit from the topography in the area, so you kind of might.
I guess I'd be curious too, and I know ultimately it goes to ZBA, if you want to do it, great, to show us, like a shadow study or something, is, I know the 4-story buildings that are out here now, sometimes you come home and it's like dark corridor, and you're in the light when you pass them, and you have sunlight when you know, between the two, but it's a dark shadow that casts its way. So you're gonna be building, you know, these 4-story buildings that are gonna cast shadows onto your butter, and I don't know, maybe it's a silly point, but that's how I feel.
The other bit that I had, the tree line, so it goes all over the place, right? So that it's kind of, you're not gonna be able to keep the tree line, but maybe along the back part there, maybe a little bit of an opening, right? Trying to keep that, just not push that in. Obviously it gets like real deep in other parts of the site, and you're gonna have to alter that to make your development work. It almost look like from the overhead here, there's like a trail at the base of this little hill.
So, yeah, on the bottom of the site, so
Yep.
the very south, there's a large wetland that
Yep.
slightly goes across our property that starts.
Yeah, I'm
with the
familiar with
property
that.
end.
So-
So that existing tree line and wetland we're not impeding on.
No, I was speaking about the east side of the site. So, the east side of the site, it'd be the homes off of Redgate Lane. If you look at the aerial view of that, it really kind of looks like you're doing the same thing here, but to not push that tree line back and almost have kind of something uniform and be like, I don't know, 50 feet, 60 feet or something in here, I think would be beneficial to the design. If you look at it on the aerial, it's fairly evident what I'm trying to get at.
So are you referring to maybe pushing the buildings back further from the east?
I don't think you might even need, yeah, if you need to, it might be a slight nudge, it might be a few feet you're talking about there, you might be
I
looking at
gotcha.
like a retaining wall or something at the bottom to do some slope compensation, but you have a good cut there, you got, geez. 15 feet or something to work with, so you're gonna have some natural screening area, screening anyway, excuse me, but just to try not to alter the width of the tree line in that area, and almost use that as a guidance for the rest of the site, because if you, it's fairly uniform there, and I think it establishes like a decent buffer, so that, just trying to utilize that to your advantage might be
Great.
beneficial.
Thank you.
It's a good suggestion, Jake.
All set? Chris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I echo some of the same thoughts that Jay and Beth had. I think the parking, well, that Jay hit on the parking. I think the parking ratio is too low. There's the Station 117, which is much closer to the downtown, walkable to the train station, I think has a higher parking ratio than this is proposed. Obviously, walking to the train station very likely isn't realistic. You can walk to Big Y, Shaw's, the restaurants and other things that are there, which is great. But I think walking to public transit is probably not in the cards for this. Also, concerns over the shadows or heights of the building relative to the neighboring existing homes that are there. I think it should be a significant consideration, as these homes are here much longer than this proposed development would be, and want to make sure that we're not impeding on those properties unnecessarily.
What's that, Chris?
That's it.
Okay, good. I just want to piggyback on everybody else's. I have similar comments, the heights of the buildings, proximity to the tree lines, parking was another one. There was a couple issues that I wanted to make sure that we took address. Mike hit upon one, was the sewer and the capacity of the pump station down the street. Water, make sure we have sufficient amount of water to feed this place, because we get more water usage and we get more constraints during the summer months, so I want to make sure there's sufficient amount of water. Get feedback from the DPW on that. The other thing is, I noticed, and I was kind of close, I was figuring approximately 40 kids, but there's going to be 50. I'd like to see some kind of drop-off area that we've done in the past for school bus, children pickup. The entrance really doesn't accommodate that very much. I think you should take an eye on that as well, for the kids to get picked up, maybe a drop-off lane for the kids and the adults. Drop the kids off, move them in. That would be another issue. The other thing was, in your drawings and your renderings, you have 30 freestanding garages. Is there an intent to put detached garages here for usage?
There's an intent to put freestanding garages, similar to what they have at Station 117.
I'd like to see that on a drawing, definitely.
Sure, yeah.
Because that's gonna add to your
Pretty
drainage
conceptual,
calcs.
so we haven't gotten to that level of detail
Yeah,
yet.
I definitely would like to see that. We will need that for drainage calcs as well. Traffic, I mean, I can't reiterate it enough. 1,500 cars, and that's just cars. That's not talking Amazon, UPS, FedEx, and everybody else. So you gotta figure 15 is now minimum 16. You figure these people are gonna be getting Amazon deliveries left and right all day long, so count that as 1,600 all day long, okay? Take that into consideration as well. What else? The height of the buildings, yeah, traffic is our hugest issue. I will wanna make note that Jen, who isn't here, submitted us a letter of her comments. I wanna make sure those are.
Do you want me to
read them?
You can read them or we can submit it for documentation. Do you want to give a quick reading?
Let's see, I think she had some of the similar comments that the other members have had about the 3 stories. The east buildings should be as low as possible. The clubhouse, more
Parking for the
parking,
clubhouse.
the same as what everyone else has said. She'd like to see some elevations as well. Trails along the river, would they be available for public use with a connection back to West Central Street? And Jen is big on sidewalks, so sidewalks in general. And then, have you been to the other, to Concom or Town Council yet to review any of this? Or
No,
the
we
first
have
time?
our first meeting with Concom on Thursday.
Okay. And she seems to be okay with the parking ratio, appropriate for the scale of project. Good to get 1.5, and I think 2 is necessary based on similar projects, or doesn't think 2 is necessary. And you answered the question about the affordable units. Okay. Can I ask one more quick question?
Sure.
Do you guys have any idea of what the percentage of impervious coverage is on your rendering right now? Close to?
I don't.
I'd be curious to know if you can give us any rough estimate of what the impervious coverage is.
Mr. Chairman, I have 2 other quick points I just thought of.
Sure, go ahead.
I thought it was mentioned, but maybe not. Heading to design review, I think the renderings that they showed have a relatively appeasing aesthetic design, but just making sure we're not getting caught with some other color choices that may have been recently used.
Lavender trim,
Just
you
for-
mean?
Or green and lavender?
Lavender, light green, whatever it is. I think that the design and the gables and such were a good thought, but I think also the color scheme is important relative to the surrounding neighborhood and the community at large. Secondarily, I think you had mentioned the having an area for buses, but also just to have a consideration for buses stopping, turning around, exiting and entering and possibly needing a loop or some other. I think it might be too tight for 2 separate entrances, but just making sure there's sufficient consideration for a bus to turn in, turn around without having to go all the way through the project. I think would be a good observation.
Anybody in the public or on Zoom? If you want to approach the mic, sir,
Yes.
your name and address if you could.
Yes, good evening. Mark Minichelli, 31 Longfellow Drive here in Franklin. In general, I support this type of project. It's great to see projects coming in that will add affordable housing units to the inventory of units that we have in Franklin. I think the 67 units in particular are the ones that are really going to potentially make a difference and make Franklin more affordable for more people coming in. I do have a few comments and maybe topics. One of them is the wetlands that are on site. I know you mentioned you're going to be seeing the Conservation Commission. And there are some leftovers from the previous or the current owner, the farming implements. I do have some concerns about the closeness of some of these structures to the existing wetlands, but I'm sure the Conservation Commission will handle all of that. You also mentioned the opportunity for cycling on site and making that a more pedestrian and cycling friendly place for being able to access the downtown, for example. I've ridden on that area of Route 140, East Central Street. It's a tough place to enter and exit on a bike, particularly trying to cross traffic to go the opposite direction. I would encourage you. I mean, having cycling stands on the site is maybe the first step, but that's not enough to make this project cycling friendly. If you really believe, as I hope, that any new projects will enable cyclists to move from this site to the downtown shopping areas and back and forth, that we need to take entrance to the roadway into consideration, safe entrance. I don't know if cyclists are considered when we do a traffic plan or traffic study, and I think maybe it's something that we should consider in the future. And thirdly, the discussion about affordability and the need to go 4 high. Today, I read in the news that Governor Healy has potentially released some more funds for affordable housing in the state of Massachusetts. Maybe that would be something to take a look at. I don't know any of the details, but maybe that would be something to take a look at that could relieve some of the financial pressures driving to the fourth story. Thank you.
Thank you. I just for those watching, and I know Beth brought it up earlier, I just want everybody to understand, 40Bs go through zoning board of appeals, come to us for recommendations, but the ultimate vote is through zoning board of appeals, so I want to make sure everybody's aware of that, and that you attend the meetings, you participate in them, because ironically, with a situation like this, the planning board doesn't have much say. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware that get involved, call the chair, and get in touch with the zoning board of appeals for this as well. Okay, because I think everybody just assumes it's the planning board. It's actually not. Sometimes these situations, our hands are tied. I just want to make sure I've made a note of that.
Two final questions.
Sure.
This is a more informational question. Amy, what is our current percentage right now?
We are at 10.9% of affordable
10.9%?
housing.
Okay. So for folks out there that are not familiar with the 40B process, this is what you technically a friendly 40B?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So we can make comments, and you guys seem willing to listen, which I appreciate, and I appreciate the time coming here to give us a presentation on your project. And I think the more input from the various boards through this process, if it's properly done, we can really come up with a great project. So I look forward to working with you guys to hopefully come up with something that is a great project, which is already on the start. You're getting there, in my opinion. And when it goes to ZBA, that the ZBA will take all the requests and considerations that the various boards are giving, town council, planning board, town design review, Concom, and actually hear those boards. So that's my hope.
Yeah, thank you for those comments. We, we wouldn't propose a project like this unless it was friendly. We're not that type of developer. So we look forward to coordinating with you guys as well as Conservation Commission and Town Council, making sure we have a project that is collaborative, that, works for the town and us, because obviously we can't get the project approved unless we have the town on board with us. So in essence, this is, more of a partnership than, it would be a non-friendly 40B. So we look forward to coordinating with you guys too in the next couple of weeks and keep going.
I do have one quick question that's not related. Do you guys keep all your projects or you sell them?
It kind of depends project by project. We've been.
'Cause we don't want to see this come through and a year later be sold.
Typically,
That's
we're
what
long.
we don't like.
Typically, we're long-term holders.
Okay. We just don't want this to be a turn and burn for profit. It's not what the town wants, and that's not what the town looking for. But thank you. Appreciate your time. Do you guys have any more comments, questions?
I got just one or two questions. You mentioned design review process, but I wasn't familiar with that being a part of the process that we're going through for the initial lip review. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, no, you're completely correct. It was not put in our friendly 40B process. I would just recommend that if it was possible, if you were to get to the ZBA step, that you agree to just go through a design review. It's a recommendation. They're not a decision-making board, but they are a recommendation board, that you could go to them at any time. There's actually no fee to file with them. This is part is keeping them involved in this friendly 40B process.
And then, will there be a comment letter issued from comments from this hearing, or in addition to the one member who was absent, or should we go ahead and put together, you know, a correspondence, a response to the comments we've heard today, and, you know, move this?
We'll compile
What,
a list of items potentially that we come to a conclusion on that we all agree.
Okay.
well, I think, like, I guess it comes down to, you've heard all the comments tonight from the board and from members. Will you be providing revised plans to come back? And then they will, at the end of the day, yes, the planning board will submit a letter. And, if you wanna do one more hearing, and no, it's actually not a hearing, it's general business, to come back with a couple of things you wanna address, and then they can write a letter off of that.
What I would propose, and obviously it's whatever is most convenient for you guys, but if we could do as you just suggested, potentially with issuing a comment letter after you guys coordinate together, that's collective of all your feedback, then we can use that to put together potentially a revised site plan and a response letter and attend another hearing to go over our.
Yeah, just for us to
So we
work
have-
our way through, because it's a lot to consume.
Yeah.
And it's a lot to take into consideration, and we do appreciate you coming to the table, open arms to it. So, yeah, I think that would work if we can just put a list of our bullet points, our concerns and whatnot. Maybe you can address some you may not, but it's a part of working together to make sure the project comes out good, and make it feasible for everybody.
Yep, perfect.
And that, if that works for you, I think that'll work for us. Okay. Well, I appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, you-
All right,
so where
thank
it's,
you, gentlemen.
so
Have a
it's,
great night.
so it's where it's general business, we'll just be in touch for another, to come maybe again under general business?
Yes.
Yeah, great, okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
You're
Chairman,
welcome.
thank you
Thank you,
very much, have a
gentlemen.
good night.
Have a great night. Questions, comments? Anybody out there? Chris, you all set?
I'm good. Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Make a motion to adjourn? Whoop. Did I
Oh,
miss
wait, did we
something?
we did meeting minutes, right?
I did meeting
We
minutes.
did meeting minutes, that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, okay.
Get going.
Don't try to extend it anymore, Amy.
Thanks
We're all
for
set.
your
I
time.
did
Have a
meeting
safe
minutes.
drive.
Okay, master plan
Thank you,
committee,
Brian.
don't forget about it.
Alright, so,
Got it.
meeting to adjourn?
Second.
Motion to adjourn?
Yep, motion to adjourn, yep. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You know it.
Meeting to adjourn.